Please welcome to the stage, John Doerr and Lily Sarafan.
Welcome, scholars, solvers, and scalers. I love those alliterations. Scholars, solvers, and scalers. That's what we are. I'm particularly pleased to be on stage here with Lily Sarafan, the chair of Stanford's Board of Trustees. And I'm thrilled to welcome each of you to the inaugural Stanford Sustainability Forum. We're sold out. The fire marshal said there was no more room where you're seated. So we'll have to bake that into our plans in years to come. But importantly, my wife, Anne, where are you, Anne, and I are thrilled to be here and want to thank Dean Majumdar and his team for hosting this incredible event. It was almost 4 years ago that Anne and I announced our gift to help launch the Stanford School of Sustainability. It's been incredible to see what the faculty and students have done and are planning to do to take on the world's most sustainable challenges across a range of disciplines. Here's some numbers. In over 3 years, the Doerr School has hired 30 new faculty, awarded 1,200 degrees to grads and undergraduate students, converted 10 accelerator projects into tech startups and policy solutions, and engaged over 3,000 students in 91 countries in the first ever Global Sustainability Challenge. Did you know that more than 2/3 of Stanford's 2025 graduating class took a course in the Sustainability School? And 88% of the Doerr School undergraduates report having had an internship during their time here, which is mission critical as we are committed to having all of our students find meaningful sustainability jobs. But there's so much more to be done, and that's the point of this forum, why we are all here today. We must leave more powerful and more action-oriented than when we walked in. And with that, I turn it over to our board chair, Lily.
Thank you, John. I want to join John in warmly welcoming all of you to Stanford. It's inspiring to see so many people here, leaders, researchers, practitioners, here to advance the work of sustainability, with many more joining us on live stream, so feel free to text your friends and let them know that they can join us here today. Stanford is associated with shaping the future, and in sustainability, that responsibility is especially clear. The scale and urgency of the challenges demand not just new ideas, but ideas that move across disciplines, into practice, and out into the world. That is exactly what the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability was created to do. In just 3 years, the school has become a critical hub of work that spans energy, climate, food systems, and the intersection of sustainability with geopolitics and security, bringing together scholars who are not only advancing knowledge, but also actively translating that knowledge into solutions. Over the next 2 days, we will engage with that work, exploring how we accelerate the energy transition, build more resilient food systems, and navigate the global dynamics of climate change. It's an ambitious agenda, and I look forward to learning alongside all of you. It's now my pleasure to introduce someone who has helped define this moment for Stanford. Arun Majumdar is the inaugural dean of the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability and the J. Precourt Professor of Mechanical Engineering. He has held leadership roles at the highest levels of science, government, and industry, including founding director of ARPA-E, acting undersecretary of energy, senior advisor to Secretary of Energy Stephen Chu, vice chairman of the advisory board to Secretary of Energy Ernest Moniz, and vice president for energy at Google. Today, his work continues to push the frontier, focusing on redox processes central to sustainable energy, multidimensional nanoscale imaging, and the application of AI to energy and climate solutions. Please join me and John in welcoming Dean Arun Majumdar.
Please give a warm welcome to Dean Arun Majumdar.
Good afternoon. So great to see you. Thank you all for joining us at the inaugural Stanford Sustainability Forum. And I know many of you have come from many miles away. Thank you for sharing your moment out here with us. You know, as many of you know, Stanford has always been a place of discovery and learning. It is buzzing with ideas and innovations, and it is energized by a spirit of optimism about the future. And as part of its DNA, the culture, it's always been bold, ambitious, with a little bit of irreverence, frankly, and risk-taking. And keeping with the DNA, Stanford did something 4 years ago that it had not done for 75 years. And that is to launch a new school, the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability. And that raised some pretty obvious and reasonable questions. Why did Stanford do this? What is happening here? How are we looking at the future? And what exactly is sustainability? The Doerr School was born with a single, bold, almost unreasonably ambitious idea to channel Stanford's research, education, and innovation, catalyze a global community for a profound purpose: to serve life on Earth forever. That is how we define sustainability. Not as a policy, not as a mandate or a requirement, but as the highest expression of what a great university owes to the world. This is our social contract for the 21st century. So sustainability is about people. It's about their well-being, their prosperity. And the prosperity depends on a thriving economy. And that economy needs access to affordable energy. People need access to clean water, to clean air, to nutritious food, to shelter, safe shelter. And so this is what exactly sustainability. And for too long, we have considered issues related to energy, water, food, biodiversity, ecology, public health, built environment, climate change in their respective silos. And we decided to ask, can we go a level higher and ask the question, what is the purpose of all of that? At the end of the day, it's about people improving their lives. But human life cannot be the only life on Earth because we won't survive. It is about the other living systems around us. So it's really in service of all that life around us. So one could ask, why did Stanford, which by all measures has done extraordinarily well in the past, just look around our neighborhood, why did it take this bold step and launch the school? Why not simply extrapolate the past? Well, you're at a university, so you're going to get a quiz now. I'm going to throw some numbers at you, and I want you to guess what they mean, and you'll be graded on it, so pay attention. So here we go. 140, 12,000, and so on. What does it mean? Well, the first one is easy. I already gave you the answer. That's the age of Stanford. 140, roughly, years ago. 12,000? Well, that's the age of agriculture. Agriculture started 12,000 years ago, and the civilization as we know it, on the organized human organizations of settlements, etc., started 12,000 years ago. And this period of 12,000 years has been marked by an incredible climate stability that allowed people to put down roots and grow settlements and villages and cities. 12,000 years. But humans have walked this earth for 300,000 years, mostly as hunter-gatherers. And our genes, all our human genes, have been shaped for 2.5 million years. And life on Earth has existed for 4 billion years. And if you look at the evolution of life on Earth, from 4 billion years ago, from the single-cell organism to this event horizon of life on Earth that we call today, you see this incredible tree of life with so many different branches around. And that last little branch at the end, that's where we are, humans. And that branch cannot survive on its own. It needs the other branches. Although I would be more than happy to have a few less mosquitoes around. That branch of 300,000 years and that 140 years that I was talking about, it's blink of an eye or less than a blink of an eye. And in that blink of an eye, something incredibly dramatic happened. And that is the human population. The human population grew gradually over all our civilizations that we know. And boom, 140 years ago, it exploded. Now, Stanford did not cause the explosion. Don't get me wrong. But it coincided with this. This is unprecedented in human history, this human explosion. Looking at the shape, I call this the human tsunami. The Earth, Mother Earth, has never seen anything like this before. The human tsunami. But the human tsunami is more than just the population, which increased by a factor of 6 over this 140 years. Just so you know, 140 years is about 3 to 5 generations. Increased by a factor of 6. GDP increased by a factor of 60. GDP per capita, which we count as our economic prosperity, by a factor of 10. Energy use by a factor of 20. You can just go down the line. CO2 emissions rate, factor of 26. Water consumption, factor of 10. But you get the picture. These are not incremental changes in 3 or 5 generations. This is the definition of a paradigm shift. The question is, what do we do? This reminds me of a very famous book written by a legendary CEO, Andy Grove, who wrote the book, Only the Paranoid Survive. Now, I don't want you to get too paranoid. But there's some important lessons out here. When you are in a fundamental shift, a 10x change, the greatest danger is standing still. That's what happened to Blockbuster or Kodak. Remember them? But this can happen. This is not necessarily only true for businesses. This can happen for communities, for countries, and civilization. And the best thing that we have heard, that we have learned from evolution, is one has to adapt or be washed away in the tsunami of a 10x change. And therein lies the opportunity to innovate and think not in the 1x world and extrapolate, but think in the context and the rules of the 10x world. Innovation needs knowledge and needs people educated with that knowledge and equipped to innovate. That is why we started the Doerr School of Sustainability 4 years ago. So allow me to share a few stories. I can't share all of them, but just a few of them. Just to give you an example, an insight of what's actually going on. Let me start with fresh water. Water is absolutely essential for life. And if you look at it annually, humans consume 4 trillion cubic meters of water. That's like a cube of 10 by 10 by 10 miles. 70% is used for agriculture. Without water, there's no food. 20% for industry, 10% for domestic use. Today, 2 billion people lack access to safe drinking water. And 97% of the liquid fresh water is stored underground in underground aquifers. And as many of you have heard, those aquifers are being depleted at an alarming rate, created huge kind of water security stress across the world. And we don't know how to refill them fast enough. We can refill the lakes and the rivers, but not the aquifers. And this depletion is going on, not just in California, more so in many other parts of the world where cities are sinking because of the water being lost. So what do you do? Well, this is now, let me explain the work of my colleague, Rosemary Knight, right here. She and her students have developed this technology to look underground 200, 300 meters, literally like an MRI machine of the earth, to see where are those channels to refill those aquifers so that you can direct the storm waters to those regions that can seep in and quickly fill aquifers. This is now being deployed in California in partnership with the policymakers, but the implications of this are planetary. And with the help of our accelerator, now that global outreach is going on. Let me now switch to food. Very important. The last 60 years has been an incredible time with progress in terms of food production. Cereal production today has exceeded, over the last 60 years, population growth because of increased productivity per unit land. Remarkable progress, green revolution, et cetera. And yet, 2 billion, or 20% of all the children today are stunted due to malnutrition. And the impact of the food system on the environment is simply staggering. Let me show you some numbers. If you add the weight of all the humans and the livestock we eat, they constitute 95% of all the mammals. The 5% is the wild animals that we like to see. Add up all the weight of the chicken and the poultry that we eat, it's 70% of all the birds, 30% of the birds that we see wild. And 80% of the agricultural land is used to support meat and dairy. It's mind-blowing. So the biggest challenge in the food system is how do we create a food system that can provide healthy diets for 9 to 10 billion people and then still preserve the living systems that we all depend on. In fact, that is precisely an undergraduate course that my colleague David Lobel teaches. He's a MacArthur Fellow. And his research focuses on satellite imagery with AI to increase food productivity and preserve the living systems. And in parallel, my colleagues Theo McKelly and Jim Leap are focusing on blue food, technology and policy solution for marine ecosystems to provide food security as well as healthy income for those billions of people who live in the coastal regions. And today we are very fortunate to have Jose Andres, who will be in dialogue with Secretary Condoleezza Rice on food security. So stay tuned. Let me move to hazards. We have many different kinds of hazards: volcanoes, earthquakes, droughts, floods, wildfires that we have seen, storms, etc. And we need to protect our people, adapt and protect our people from these hazards. But there's one set of hazard that is increasing over time, and that is due to climate change. If you look at this curve of global average temperature rise, the Paris Agreement was struck in 2015 under the leadership and stewardship of Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General, and he's here. He'll be in conversation as well later on today. And the idea was to keep the global average temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, we're already there, and we're shooting past it. The global average temperature rise gives only part of the story. What's really important as far as people are concerned is the distribution. So if you look at the evolution of the distribution, what you'll find are two things. One is that the poles are warming faster, melting the ice caps. And the second is that every odd summer, you see hotspots appearing. We don't know how to predict where the next hotspot is going to be this year or next year. And yet we have to protect our people. We are playing Russian roulette with climate change. Climate change is a 10x change. If we live in the old paradigm, we may face our Kodak moment. It follows the laws of physics, not the laws of geopolitics. It doesn't care about those boundaries that are there on Earth. And yet we have to figure out how to protect the people when you have these extreme weathers. And this brings me a few examples of the work of my colleague Noah Diffenbaugh, who is literally trying to predict how hot it's going to be and where the hotspot might appear. Because in the tropical regions, the temperatures and humidities are reaching unlivable conditions. And those of you who live there know it. It also brings me to the knowledge that is being gained on human migration that my colleague Helene Benveniste is exploring. When will people migrate? How much? What's the scale? And the work that is going on under Rishi Jain. So when you have these hotspots appear in tropical regions, in informal settlements, which we call slums, that do not have air conditioning, and you're reaching 50 degrees Celsius, there's heat stress. How do you keep them cool? That's Rishi Jain. And we all know that the coastal regions are likely to face some constraints, there's vulnerability. And that is the work of Jack Baker to find out what are those risks in the coastal regions, both due to sea level rise and storm surges, and protect those communities. These are just a few examples. There's a lot more going on. Let me switch to energy now. Energy is the bedrock of our economy. Today, the growth of AI is limited by access to energy, electricity. And as you can see, the economic growth of a country depends really on how much energy they use. And if you look at the last 150 years, something remarkable has happened. Energy security, as we are now seeing, is super important. Very, very important. And how we use energy, how we source, move, and use energy has major implications on our environment, both air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So what has happened over the last 140 or 50 years? This is what has happened. We used to be primarily based, I'm putting the marker of Stanford to say 140 years. Stanford did not cause this. We used to be reliant on biomass mostly, and then we have added other sources of energy. We have not subtracted any. And you find today, 80% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. 80%. We can't simply turn it off because we're going to disrupt people's lives. And yet we know that we have to transition to a low-carbon economy because otherwise we have another problem of climate change. So how do we do it? This is really like rebuilding the plane as we fly it without crashing the global economy. This is really hard to do. But there's some good news. The last 10 to 15 years have been quite remarkable. If you look at the investments that are going on to build energy infrastructure, something flipped. It used to be mostly, in 2015, oil and gas. Today it's renewables. That's a great news story. And this is being scaled. And the question is, why did that happen? Is that due to climate change or for some other reason? Well, here's the data. The cost of electricity from solar 15 years ago used to be the most expensive way, and what is absolutely remarkable, in a matter of 15 years, it's the cheapest. Wind and solar are the cheapest way to produce electricity today. And so, one of the lessons learned that we adopt as a philosophy at Stanford is that, hey, cleaner must be cheaper. That's the only way to scale. And so now this is going on. The investments are going on, solar and wind. The question is, can we keep up? And the other aspect is that the grid that you integrate the solar and wind on was never designed for fluctuating generation. It was designed for firm power, clean, firm power. How do we get it? Well, today, for solar and wind, we can get by with lithium-ion batteries. But as you integrate more in solar and wind, you need long-duration storage that has to be 10x cheaper than lithium-ion batteries. Again, the 10x cheaper than lithium-ion batteries. And that's hard, not easy. 20 years of research in my colleague Yi Chui's lab has produced many different batteries, including lithium-ion. But there's one stands out in terms of long-duration storage is this manganese hydrogen battery, which gave birth to this company called Enervenue that is actually scaling it. Happened here. And if you want clean, firm power, another way to do it is geothermal. And 50 years of research and knowledge creation in Roland Horn's lab on geothermal has laid the foundation that led to the formation of the company called Fervo, which was co-founded by one of his PhD students, Jack Norbeck, and a business school student, Tim Latimer, to start Fervo. That is defining the bleeding edge of geothermal. But it all started with knowledge creation and the use of that right here at Stanford. Let me add one more. And this is a very important question that we have to answer in sustainability. How can we create a future where humanity and nature can thrive together? Fundamental question. And the question really comes down to, how do we value them? We know how to value a business. There's a market cap. We know how to value a building that is shown out here. And we know how to value the economic activity of a country, GDP. But GDP is a great metric, but it's inadequate. Because if you have an oil spill, for example, the BP oil spill where Steve Chu and I were involved in, then you find that to clean up, you got to spend money. The GDP goes up. But it's an environmental disaster. If the building falls down, you got to spend money to clean it up. The GDP will go up. So GDP does not know how to value nature and the ecosystem services that it provides humanity. And so that is the work of Gretchen Daly, who has dedicated her life for the last 20 years, started this natural capital project to value ecosystem services from nature, and came up with the concept of the gross ecosystem product as a rigorous mathematical approach to doing that. This is now being adopted by financial institutions worldwide, where when they lend money, they want to make sure that not only the GDP, but the GEP goes up. The concept of GDP received the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1971, and we hope, if sustainability is that important, that Gretchen receives similar kinds of honors as well. Just a hint. So as I've talked about only about 10 or 15 faculty members, but you get the picture. There are 150 of us now. Each one of our faculty members has about 5 to 10 PhD students and postdocs, forming an army of about 1,000 people doing research and education, all in service of life on Earth. This is incredible. That's why the school was formed. And if you really want to find out what's going on, I hope you get to meet the faculty and the students in the Ideas Hall, because their work, as you'll find, is as extraordinary as the ones that I just described. It's remarkable. I call them, they are the pride and joy of our school. I call them the trustees of life on earth. A little bit about the school. It was formed 4 years ago to reimagine academia and lean into issues of sustainability that I just talked about. When we formed, about 130 faculty members came from all 7 schools, from 39 different departments to create a microcosm of the whole campus, leaning into this. We had 5 departments, we added 2 more. We have hired, over the last 4 or 5 years, hired 30 faculty members, and we're not slowing down. We're going to add more because we need it. We were very fortunate to have 2 research institutes, Woods Institute for the Environment, the Precourt Institute for Energy, that created this connective tissue over the last 20 years of bringing faculty and students together from across the campus to do solutions-driven research with a connectivity and connective tissue to the outside world. Very fortunate to have that. And we launched a sustainability accelerator to institutionalize a very important DNA that is there in Stanford, is to not only come up with solutions, but to nurture them, prove some scalability, and get them launched. And that is going on right now. A little bit about the students. What we have found is that the students from across campus really care about this issue. They get it. They get the 10x change, and they're worried about the future. They are learning, the number of students in our courses are going up. But they're really worried about something. They're worried about their jobs and the career path. So we've just launched a career center to find, this is for all Stanford students, to find them a job. And this job could be in many different, whether it's finance or government, doesn't matter, to find them a job. Because given the 10x change, we think that every job in the future will require some kind of knowledge or mindset on sustainability. And that's why we created. But what is very exciting is the fact that we are now designing a building, our campus, called Sustainability Commons, right next to the engineering quad, which is going to be the home for all the things that I've described for the next 100 years. Yes, 100 years. We are 4 years in. But this is going to be a long journey, not going to be easy. And this is one journey that you cannot travel alone. There is no academic institution, no corporation, no single country that can address these planetary issues alone. You need global partnerships. You need to have people out in the trenches in the tropical regions and other regions to find out what is actually going on, to define the challenge so we can address them. This needs partnership. So you had your quiz. Here's your homework now. You'll be graded on it, so pay attention. The homework we have for you is to tell us, we need to listen to you. What do you think is the greatest sustainability challenges and opportunities the world faces, which if we can address with speed and scale, as John and Ryan likes to talk about, we will make a dent in this world. So you can use your phone app, you could take a picture of the QR code, or if you're not so inclined, just go and write on the whiteboard outside, the old-fashioned way. Some of you have already started submitting, that's great. But don't leave without doing your homework. You'll be graded. Just to wrap up, folks, we are in this 10x moment that really requires 10x approaches to discover knowledge and bold solution the world needs. We're not doing it because it's easy, but precisely because it's hard, because it's needed. And sustainability is not a religion for us. We've got to be super practical about this. So if our solutions are not affordable, they won't be adopted. We have to pay attention to that. If our solutions, if they don't improve people's lives, they won't endure. And if they cannot travel beyond this campus, they will not matter. We take these issues to heart. So just kind of to wrap up, from a personal note, my wife and I have 2 daughters, beautiful daughters. And they are both working now, and they're building their lives. And once in a while, we do wonder, when we are long gone, what is the world that they will be living in? Will they have the tools and the knowledge and the know-how to really face these 10x challenges? Will they have a fighting chance? And I suspect you all must be wondering too. We all have families, we have kids. Because there's one thing common in all human beings, regardless of culture, regardless of faith, ethnicity, national boundaries, there's one thing common that we all share, is to make sure that our kids, our children and grandchildren, have a slightly better world to live in than we do. Right? This is common. And so, given that, and I suspect this is something that is going on in your mind as well. And so when we look at this future, what gives me real hope, genuine hope, not in a wishful thinking or illusions or dreams, but hope grounded on science, on evidence and solutions, is what I've described. We think we may have a fighting chance for our next generation to really address this, not just to survive the 10x change, but to thrive in it. So as you can tell, I can say for my team out here, the faculty, the students, the staff, this is not just a profession journey. This is deeply personal. And I hope this becomes personal for you too. So a few weeks ago, Artemis 2 showed us, reminded us what Apollo had shown us before, is this picture. And the picture is an amazing one. It shows this single luminous blue sphere that we call home. This is our Mother Earth. All the history of human and the life on Earth all happened out here. All our families live here. That's where it is. There's only one planet that has life that we know of. And each one of us has one life to live. So let's make it count. Let's join together this journey together and give the next generation a fighting chance and bring some real hope to this world. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoy.